Hi all, this is Skate, and I want to run through what's fast becoming one of my favourite tier 10 tanks, which of course is the T57 American heavy tank. Now I haven't played this tank in a while, but when I took it out about last week and the week before, well, I couldn't stop playing it. It's really good fun, and a lot of people say this tank sucks, and then they instantly compare it to the AMX-50B and say the AMX-50B is better. Now that of course does come down to personal preference. It's horses for courses at the end of the day. Personally, I prefer the T57. Obviously I will explain my reasons for that throughout the video. Otherwise I'll probably talk for a good long while at this start bit just looking at the garage. However, I have some very fun games to show you, so we need to skip through this area as quick as possible while still trying to give as much information as possible. So first off, if we have a quick look at my equipment setup. The first thing, I'm running the rammer rather than the calibrated shells, because this obviously helps to improve many areas of the tank, not just the aim and loading time, which does give you a slight edge. On top of that then, I run the coated optics. You can see I've also got my enhanced gun lane drive. I run the enhanced armor as well, and I will run through that in a second. I then run improved control, and you can see I'm just waiting for my V-stabs to be... I'm waiting for the timers to come off. The fact I've spent my spare parts on this tank, and I'm still spending spare parts on this tank, goes to show how much I'm enjoying it, because I think you can tell from my videos what I think about spare parts. Now, with the ammunition, just make sure you're loading out in sets of 3. It's very helpful. So I run 6 HE, 9 heat, which you probably won't ever need, but it's worth packing just in case, and then 21 AP. On a provisions front, I will then run improved fuel and then both the colas for crew skills. I forgot what it's called then. Now you can't run adrenaline on here, so I run a engine power boost instead. I find that very beneficial. Moving on quickly though, I do just want to do a quick comparative between the T57 Heavy, obviously its most obvious counterpart, the AMX-50B, and then the T110E5. The first thing to point out, obviously the T110E5 has the rammer fitted here, which is why it has pretty much the same DPM. However, if you drop that off, and then you drop the vents off this, you will see that this thing, well, it's got the better DPM on them. However, with the rammer fitted, it does bring it more back equal playing field between the two American tanks, but it does pull ahead of the AMX-50B. On top of that, the T57 Heavy has better penetration. I know it's only 8mm, but you'd be surprised when that 8mm can come in handy and more useful. And then the other thing which I think really does make a difference between these tanks is an 18-second reload or a 23-second reload. That can make one hell of a difference. Other than that, obviously they both pack, but they all pack the same caliber gun, and they all have pretty much the same shell velocity. When you're looking at the aim time on the 57 Heavy is just short of what the E5 is, but it's better than the AMX-50B. The dispersion on it is also better than the E5 and the same as the AMX-50B. However, it's because they both have vents on. Take the vents off and it's the same. But obviously you have that advantage of the vents improves many areas. It has 8 degrees of gun depression as well, rather than the 10 which the 50B has. Now the 10 is very nice, but you can live without it. But this is where the 50B does shine in comparison to the 57 Heavy. It does 50 kilometers per hour and it has 10 degrees of gun depression. Yet it has a slower track traverse. The 57 Heavy has 30 degrees and the AMX-50B has 25. That is very important, I think, because the 57 does have the better armor. If you are stuck in a situation where you're brawling, you can turn that bit quicker to get your strongest armor facing whoever's shooting at you. On top of that, the 57 Heavy has better terrain resistance on soft and medium ground and slightly worse on hard. So 57 may be slower in a straight line, but it doesn't struggle in terms of traversing. The other thing, which I think is important to point out, is the 57B also has that little bit more hit point pool. But when you look at the average figures for people playing this tank over the last 90 days, win rate is pretty much the same. There's 100 difference on average damage in favour of the T57. And this is why I say it's horses for courses, because they are both very well balanced, but one shines a little bit more in terms of armour and damage, and the other one shines a little bit more in terms of straight line mobility and that little bit of extra hit points. But I do want to show you the armour on the T57, because you've got a massive lower plate, which is very, very weak. Head on, pretty much anything you come up against will penetrate it. And it's the same with the lower cheeks on the turret. They're very easy places to hit. Obviously, we do have an oscillating turret here, so there is no armour when your gun is fully elevated as well. Now, a lot of people say the T57 has bad armour. I don't actually think it does. I think it has a very frustrating turret. And a lot of people do get annoyed by this, because you think the T57 is an easy pen on top, but it's not. So if you're putting your tank in situations where they can only shoot at anything in line with the gun and above, you're actually quite an annoying target. I mean, just above the gun is a giant weak spot, but you'll see it's no penetration whatsoever around it. And then when you're wiggling the turret or you're moving the turret, those upper areas of the turret, they go from green to red to 30% chance to a 50% chance, and it becomes really annoying to try and penetrate. Now, when I first got this tank, everyone was penetrating it. I was just trying to wiggle the turret like mad. But when you're popping over something and not showing much except for the top, and you give it a tiny wiggle between your shots, or even just moving the hull back and forth so it's harder to hit the weak spots on the upper area of the turret, it becomes really frustrating. Because it's not... Well, this is where it differs from the AMX-50B. The AMX-50B has a very tough upper front plate, but it has a very, very bad turret. This thing, on the other hand, I have confidence in the turret on this. If I show the lower cheeks, yeah, I'm expecting to get penetrated. If I'm trying to hide as much as I can and they've only got the top area of the turret, it's really annoying to hit it. If you sit still in your T57 heavy, they're going to be able to aim at those weak spots and hit them. If you're moving between your shots, even just back and forth slightly, or even a tiny little left and right wiggle, it will produce bounces. I will give some examples of this in the gameplay as well. The other thing I like doing is trading off hit points. If I can take a shot by running out YOLO style in front of an enemy IS-7 or an enemy Leo or any tank which has around 1,000 hit points, and I can take one shot off it which allows me to take that tank out, is it worth doing it? Yes, hell yes. That's one less gun, and for the sake of me taking, say, anywhere from 300 to 500 damage, I can very quickly and very easily take out a tank with a good amount of hit points left, and that gives your team one huge advantage. I mean, at the start of this game, I told the team I'll go help the meds because they were outnumbered on this side, and we're now still outnumbered. But hope is not all lost, because you can pretty much aim to take a tank out, like I said, with one clip. And the key to that, I think, is aiming for tracks. You may not always get the track shots you want, but if you're aiming for them and you're trying to hit them, there is a damn good chance you're going to get them and slow them down, which helps twofold. One, it keeps them in spot while you're reloading your next shot in the clip, and two, it gives you the opportunity to run away while you're doing your reload. While you're on a reload is probably the correct terminology. That's completely irrelevant. I don't even know why I corrected myself. You probably wouldn't have even noticed. Now, we did just take a bounce or shot off that Type 61. It did bounce, so we know he is still in that area. And this Object 140 clearly still thinks we're reloading, so we're going to get one into his track. He is going to fix it straight away. But I've got 2 shots left, and there's 2 enemy on... Oh, what the hell? And you will get shots like that from time to time, which are really frustrating. But There is a Type 61 on his own by here, but there are 2 on one of my tanks here. So I want to take this guy out quickly, and then I'll go back for the Type 61. It was worth it to take the 1 tank out. I've taken 1 shot so far off this Type 61. We are losing the game, which is why I want to get as many guns out as I can to try and level the playing field a little bit more. But he's not going to be able to run away from me. We are a heavy tank, but we're not a slow heavy tank. So we've got 1 into him, and we still have the potential to do another 800 damage in this clip. Which is obviously enough to come in here and help out our, well, sadly not help out our friendly tank because he has now died. But it's enough to take this tank out very quickly, and we're now on a reload again. But the 18-second reload I don't find frustrating, and I don't find it irritating either. By the time you've relocated to your next target, you're virtually going to be on the point of reloading anyway. So there is an E100, we know he's just shot his gun, so I'm going to aim for his track to try and keep him in place. And we can keep putting our shots into him. Now this is something I love to do. I've done my clip on him, and I'm going to keep running away. He is going to get a shot into me. But I think this is so important when it comes to autoloaders, because all this guy's thinking is he's got a shot on me now, and he's not reversing. Because I'm still reversing, he thinks I'm still on a reload. However, I'm not. You'd be surprised how often that works. People think you are on a reload just by reversing and continuing to reverse. You're almost baiting them to come out in the open. So when your clip is ready to go, you can unload your clip on them before they even get time to reload. And if they were reversing back out to cover, you'd have to chase them, and there's a good chance they'd get another shot onto you. This part, well, I wanted the last kill. I'm not reloaded yet, so I put my engine boost on and I'm going for the ram. And we got it. I can't believe I actually managed to do that, though. But that does mean we finished this game on 6 kills. And that is the nice part, again, about the autoloaders, is you can just mop up a couple of low-health tanks in a couple of seconds of each other. But that did result in a 4,774 damage game. And we got a first class. And we don't make bad credits in this tank. I seem to make around 20,000 constantly. Which, when you think about it, for a tier 10 tank, that's not bad to know that you're making credits every game rather than going into a negative. I mean, it's not much, but even without premium, that game I would have made 2,000 silver profit. Now this game's interesting. There is a guy at the top of the screen, another loss, and I thought, oh great, here we go. And then he called everyone noobs, and I have no idea why. So I genuinely thought, it's going to be one of those games. Especially as I've already been spotted, and I know I'm crossing here, and I'm going to get nailed in the side. Thankfully, only 1 shot from a T57. But yeah, this game, straight at the start, you know when you go in and go, this is going to be one of those frustrating games. But again, you'll notice I'm looking for the track shot. Here is the downside to the track shot. I'm waiting for that track shot so I could try and hold him in place for the next tank to come up and someone else to take shots at him. However, I missed it completely. So I would have been better there just going for it and just putting my last clip in the side of him. So yeah, after a fun start, this then happened. Someone drives in front of you just as you're about to shoot. That's like my pet peeve. I hate that. I think more than anything, I just don't understand it. If you can see someone aiming at a target, why would you drive right in front of them? Obviously, the only reason I could think of is you want to stop that person taking the kill, or stop that person shooting and doing damage because you want to take it. Which is just not cool and not team play. But in terms of this game, that was my first assumption of the guy in the T54E1. Turns out I was quite wrong. He turned out later in the game to be very helpful, which is great. But obviously we'll go through that in a second. You'll notice what I'm trying to do is get my last shot, as I tried to on the last clip as well, into the track of the IS-7. Only because you pin him out in the open, which means other people could get shots on him, which means you get assistance damage, or if he was closer, it would have given me more opportunity to get away from him. Now I decided to YOLO run this guy thinking I could clip him and ram him no problem at all. However, I missed a shot on him. It was an easy shot, but for some reason I missed it. But we're firing HE, so we do manage to finish him off. And this is where that T54E1 comes in handy. So yeah, the moaning at players right at the very start, I hated. and I also hated the blocking my shot. But I'm going to assume he did it accidentally, because he does turn out to be a team player, which I was happy with. For example, I turned around here knowing I couldn't get away from the IS-7, he would have had a shot on my butt, so I might as well turn my arm around and try again, pin this IS-7 in place. And I can get away, however he does come back to help me when I ask for help, and he does finish off the IS-7, which is great. So I do have to say thank you to that player for obviously coming back and helping me. If he wasn't a team player, he wouldn't have done that, so I'm happy for that. So gotta thank the guy. I can only assume at the start of the game he must have had a bad run in the last few. I don't know. Everyone's got their reasons. But yeah. It was handy having him in the game, and I am grateful for him coming back and helping me at the end there. It did help me to get a 5,559 damage game. That was a first class, and we made 91,000 in that, but that obviously doesn't reflect because that is from a mission as well. But without that mission, that game still would have given us 40,000 credits, which again, for a tier 10 tank, is pretty good. Now this next game will give more example of what I meant earlier about hiding as much of the tank as you can, and just poking at the top. The same as we did on the ridge in the last one, you just poke the top of the tank over, and it makes you a harder, much more bouncy target. But we have spotted all of these guys, which is great, because that damage all done to that grill is all my assistance damage. And all the damage being done to the other tanks which are lit up at the moment is where we lit them up. So while they're lit up from us, it's our assistance damage. So that's obviously very helpful towards us. Now you'll see I'm pushing up as I'm about to finish my reload, and then I'll pop out exactly when I'm finished. I did manage to get one shot onto that T30, but he did manage to get a shot on us. And looking at the damage, that was either HE or APCR. Let's see if we can get one more shot onto the Jagdtiger. He bounced off the top left side. For God's sake, I can't talk today, guys. He bounced off the top left cheek on our turret. Now this IS-4 I think has paid attention to how many shots I'm firing, because as soon as we're on the reload he does pop out. However, we have a very quick reload, and I don't think he expects our reload to be this quick. So I am going to try and push up and stop him pushing on the very, very low health tank next to me, and I am going to go up, and we're going to see if we can get a full clip into the guy. You'll see him going for track shots, but I keep missing his track. So if we can get the next one in, I don't know if I got that track shot, if it was someone else, but it does mean I can get back into cover at least. But again, remember, I'm pretty much the only person who's been spotting sticking my head over the ridge. So anybody sticking their head over here in the red team and who's getting shot, I can claim assistance damage for that. And thankfully he didn't require 2 shots, which means I've got 2 left in the clip. And I'm going to come down here and see if I can keep the IS-4 from pushing. But I did see a Death Starler earlier who did bounce off my other cheek. So we've had 1 bounce off the left cheek and 1 bounce off the right cheek so far. But you'll see the position we had our T57 in. The only bit of us which was sticking out was one of the cheeks and part of the gun. So the only part we've given them really is a very, very troll part of us. Now we are on a reload, again sticking just enough out. We've got 1 shot into him, 1 shot into him, which again is the beauty of an autoloader. That's 2 very dangerous, very nasty tanks knocked out very quickly. They were on low health, which means they can be addressed. Now this is the last guy. In any other circumstance I would have gone for the reload. However, I wanted to get 1 shot in, and I'm aiming for track damage here, or at least to ram him and do some damage. Because obviously he is going to get finished off quickly. You'll notice though, I was aiming, constantly trying to turn my gun to where he was turning his gun. That way there's a good probability he would have bounced off the trollish areas of the turret. But it does mean we did a lot less damage in this game, 4,881, but we got a mastery in this game. Now, we did 3,200 assistance damage, which obviously you obtain from spotting damage and tracking damage. And this isn't uncommon in the T57 Heavy. I've had a good few games where when you track someone as you're pulling away to reload, obviously they get nailed by several shots, hopefully if you've left them in the open, or just by using the fairly good mobility, because let's be fair, for a heavy tank it's got good mobility. The only way you can say the mobility is bad is when you're comparing it to the AMX-50B. So all in all, I think it's a fantastic tank. And as I mentioned at the start, it all comes down to personal preference. But for me, I think this looks better. I think it's more reliable. And I just think it's so much fun to play compared to the AMX-50B. And I know there's going to be so many people in the comments going, "Ah, you're so wrong. It's not better." As I mentioned, horses for courses, guys. It's personal preference. But for me, I'm probably going to end up hooked on this tank and spend a lot of time playing it again. So if you are after this tank, you're working up the line now, or maybe you can't decide which autoloader is for you, or maybe you just came to check out some gameplay because, I don't know, you're bored or need some stress relief, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going now. Right, I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.